Welcome back to Salted Hash. My name's Steve Reagan. Today we're going to talk about honeypots and some interesting things you can do with botnets. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Again, my name is Steve Reagan, Senior Staff Writer at CSO Online and host of Salted Hash. All this week, I am out here at RSA in San Francisco. Today, I'm talking with Cybereason, and this is their CISO, Israel Barak. It's good to see you again, man. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with us. So you guys have put out a study here recently, and you set up some honeypots, and you let the bots go nuts. So tell me about this research you guys have been doing, what you found out.
Well, this time we've set up a honeypot that masqueraded as a financial services company. There was about 100 machines in the back end there, which included user behavior emulation. The honeypot itself exposed a number of services to the outside world, mail services, web services, DevOps services, and we basically try to build it as realistically as possible with a website, LinkedIn pages, et cetera, et cetera. The goal was to really see how the bot landscape was changing in terms of what type of bots are we seeing out there, how prevalent they are, what are their operational goals, what do they actually do in their post-penetration phase.
So how quickly, once you got this set up online, how quickly did you start seeing bot traffic?
Within hours. Within hours after setting up the infrastructure, registering the new domain names, and getting the internet connected, we got a hell of a lot of bot activity.
So were you seeing just like basic level scans like you would expect to see across an entire suite of IPs, or were you actually seeing brute force attempts and actual infiltration?
So usually you see two types of bots. In this case, we actually saw a third type that became the focal point of our research. But the first two types are generally, level one bot is a bot that would take advantage of a vulnerable service to, initiate or support one type of business activity. So they would take advantage of a vulnerable email server to send out spam, or they would take advantage of a vulnerable server to deploy a cryptocurrency miner or a DDoS bot. That's essentially what they do. A second level bot is a bot that tries to take information off of the server, usually for black market resale, information like cookies, cache credentials, browser history, et cetera, user information from the server, payment card information if they're able to extract it from the server, and then just resell that data. The third type of bot, or the level 3 bot that we saw, and that's definitely something that we did not expect to see, definitely not as quickly as we saw it and as intensively as we saw it, is a bot that doesn't facilitate one particular business activity, but actually opens up an infrastructure to a human attacker, does a lot of the grunt work for that human attacker before they actually let the person go in.
So you're talking about a bot that exploits an external service or a public-faced service, and then kind of sets up like the reverse shells or drops whatever payloads needs to be dropped, and basically clears the way for a human actor to sit down at a keyboard and be like, who's victim number 5 today?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's even more than that, right? So after the bot came in, this particular bot, they established multiple persistence mechanisms on that vulnerable server with multiple backup users.
What kind of persistence were you seeing?
So mostly persistence in terms of overriding operating system modules. So when the operating system reloads, the bot reloads, or its mechanisms get reload. Backdoors, like using the hotkey to be, so you can get a shell even without logging into an RDP session. So a number of these persistence mechanisms, they're generally well known. It's just that in this case, they were set up by the bot as different options for the human attacker to come back in, establishing multiple alternative user accounts. So if someone changes the password of the original user that the bot got in through, they'll have other options to come in through. But in addition to persistence and alternative authentication options, the bot actually did a lot of other things that established the business value for the human attacker to come in. It actually harvested information on credentials, took credentials off of that endpoint, took the history of the browser, where did this user go, or what type of cookies can you find on that server? A very long list of retail sites that it was looking for, financial services sites, dating sites, general web, interesting web resources, valuable web resources, and it basically exfiltrated the whole thing alongside with network reconnaissance, the names of the machines on the network, and essentially built a business case for the human attacker to come in and see what they can get.
So do you think the bot was actually building a profile so that later someone could say, all right, here's Israel's company, and here's his account. We know what he's doing. We know why he's doing it. So for $1,000, I'm going to give you everything you need to go find him, and you can have you do whatever you want to do with this company after that point. You think that's what they're building out? Or
I think that there's definitely a probability that what the bot was doing, it was building a post in one of those black market forums for a machine for sale, because the type of data that was collected from the machine aligns very well with the type of data that you would see in one of these posts.
Okay, so when you correlate the data being collected versus what you're seeing on the post, then at any point during this trial, you ran this for 2 months, right?
Yes.
About 2 months. Did you ever see evidence of a human actor interacting?
Yes.
So when you saw the human actor, what were they doing?
So about 2 days after the bot finished its work, it took the bot worked for about 2 days, right? Collecting information, exfiltrating this information over the RDP channel. And then 2 days after the bot finished its work, we got a human attacker to come in. Now we know that it's a human attacker that used the bot infrastructure because of
Typos.
2 things. Oh yeah,
Typos. It's got to be typos.
We actually haven't looked for that. We should, but we saw it because of 2 reasons. But that's a great idea. We'll look for it. Number one, the attacker that came in did not use the original compromised user that the bot got in through, but actually one of the users that the bot created. So we know that that new attacker used the infrastructure that the bot laid out. The second thing, they used UI applications. They opened up windows, server management windows, interacted with those windows, right? Clicked in different places, changed server configuration, opened up additional command control options with WinRM. So we know that there's really no reason for the bot to do it, right? The bot actually did the whole thing with command shells, right, and API calls. It's really just a human that would open up those windows. Maybe not even a very sophisticated human.
No, but I mean, yeah. It's so. Then, at any point, did it look like the human realized that, wait, this isn't what I think it is? This is, or were they completely fooled by the setup?
So the human attacker went in about 2 days after the bot finished its job, and then decided what they want to take out. And they did deploy a mass mailer, a software called Turbo Mailer.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they used to exfiltrate about 3 gigs of data from this environment. And they took out that 3 gigs of data. It took about 4 days. They did it kind of low and slow. Took 3 gigs of data, and we never saw that human attacker again.
Ooh.
So they worked from April 2nd to April 6th. After April 6th, no sign of that human attacker again.
Have you seen any sign of the data that was, I mean, obviously it was all worthless data, but there were markers, surely. So have you seen those markers appear anywhere?
We have not yet seen them.
So if the attacker was to look at the data itself that they exfiltrated, would it immediately be like, oh, son of a, it's just completely garbage?
That was really just junk data. Okay. So I imagine either the human attacker looked at the data and then figured out that it wasn't very interesting, very valuable, or they suspected that they're probably onto a honeypot.
Well, I mean, obviously the big fear is if I go back, I'm going to get banned, so they wouldn't want to return. But you got to wonder, curiosity, be like, okay, if this is garbage, then what the hell was that? And they go back in and start poking around more to try to, there's going to be somebody who's curious. You finished this particular test in 2 months. Are you planning to do additional tests?
Absolutely.
So are you going to stick with the financial services, or are you going to try to look at other verticals?
We're going to look at industrial control systems, air control systems. So we're going to try to establish honeypots around different verticals, and try to see if we're looking at different profiling.
Any consideration to set up a hospital?
I think that could be a wonderful option.
Group?
I think that could be a wonderful option.
That would be kind of fun to see how the bots interact with a heart monitor, for example, or a remote diagnostic tool for pacemakers and things, to see what their they're playing with. But that would, if you do, I'd certainly like to see that. That would be fun. So aside from the test results, I know you guys are out here in RSA having meetings. What else are you working on coming up?
Wow. Well, we got a lot coming up, right? So outside of the incident detection, visibility, response infrastructure, and the NGAV, or the preventative capabilities, we're adding threat intel integration on top of that, so you can essentially create actionable threat intel, right? The idea is for each of our detections, you'd be able to get the broader context of what else we've seen around that particular actor or that particular TTP, right, based on extensive threat intel sources. You'll see, in addition to that, significant effort on additional contextualization, right? So one of the things that we obviously focus on a lot is how do we make an incident clear in terms of its full context to an analyst. So we're investing heavily, and you'll see that here, in further explaining that full context, end-to-end attack story to an analyst that's using our technology.
Nice, nice. So Israel, where, if people wanted to keep up with you online, like say on one of the social channels or just outside of the business context, where can they find you?
Well, that's probably best to either go on LinkedIn, Israel Barak,
LinkedIn, yeah.
or Twitter, Israel Barak 30.
Nice, nice. So this has been Salted Hash. I'm your host, Steve Reagan. Thanks again for coming out and talking with us. I appreciate it. Like I said earlier, we are out here all week during RSA, and I will be shooting some things. So if you would like to keep up with Cybereason or myself, stay tuned to CSOonline.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.